Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. President Lee Jae-myung departed Seoul this morning to visit Turkey and Mongolia. The highlight of his trip is his debut at the NATO summit in Ankara, as Seoul seeks to strengthen defense ties and position itself as a key partner for the alliance. Samsung Electronics reported a preliminary operating profit of 89.4 trillion Korean won, or around $58 billion for the 3 months through June. That's more than double the company's operating profit for all of last year and surges past analyst estimates. Russia launched a major missile and drone attack on Ukraine, killing at least 22 people and injuring nearly 90 more. This came just hours after U.S. President Donald Trump claimed a resolution to the Ukraine war is getting closer than people realize. President Lee Jae-myung departed for a two-leg trip to Turkey and Mongolia this morning. In Ankara, he will make his NATO summit debut, with Seoul looking to position itself as an attractive defense partner for the alliance. Our Blue House correspondent Song Yoo-jin breaks down what to expect from Lee's 5-day trip.
Less than a month after attending the G7 summit, President Lee Jae-myung is heading to another major diplomatic stage, the NATO summit in Turkey. Korea, participating as an invited partner, is eyeing to deepen defense cooperation with the alliance. Together, NATO's 32 members account for more than half of global defense spending, making it the world's largest defense market.
As geopolitical uncertainty continues to grow, NATO allies are increasing defense spending and expanding their own defense production capabilities. As a NATO partner, Korea also needs to strengthen interoperability in line with NATO standards, so our defense products can be more readily supplied to allied countries.
A key highlight of Lee's visit will be the NATO Summit Defense Industry Forum on Tuesday. The event will bring together senior NATO officials, government representatives, and defense industry leaders. There, President Lee will deliver a keynote address and join a panel discussion.
Through the forum, we will directly showcase the strengths of our defense industry and its rapid production capabilities to NATO allies and partner countries, while securing concrete avenues of cooperation as we work toward becoming one of the world's top 4 defense exporters.
Beyond defense, Seoul hopes to broaden cooperation with NATO in areas ranging from security to the economy. As part of that effort, President Lee will hold talks with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on Tuesday. He will then join a meeting between NATO and its 4 Indo-Pacific partners, Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. Several bilateral meetings with fellow world leaders are also being arranged. After 2 days in Turkey, President Lee will travel to Mongolia for a 3-day state visit. He is scheduled to hold a summit with Mongolian President Ufnagin Huresu on Thursday. The trip will conclude with Lee attending the opening ceremony of Mongolia's historic Naram Festival as a guest of honor, becoming the first Korean president to do so. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics has announced a record-breaking second quarter operating profit. According to a preliminary earnings report posted on Tuesday, Samsung saw operating profits of 89.4 trillion Korean won, or approximately $58.5 billion for its best quarter on record. Sales increased 129.3% year over year to reach approximately $111.9 billion. While market analysts have widely expected a strong performance driven by global demand for advanced AI memory chips, the report exceeded expectations to record the highest operating profits for any tech company worldwide. The finalized and fully audited financial results will be disclosed later this month, following board approval. And now for more on this, we're joined today by Professor Park Min-jung, professor at the Department of Business Administration at Kumo National Institute of Technology. Professor Park, thanks for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
So, Samsung Electronics profits surged past analyst estimates in the 3 months through June. How significant is this, and what does it tell investors who are trying to gauge how much longer the AI investment boom can last?
Yeah, the Samsung's electronics stronger than expected earnings are significant because they reinforce the view that the AI-driven semiconductor cycle is still intact. More importantly, they suggest the demand for high-value memory products such as HBM and DRAM remains stronger than many investors had anticipated. However, I don't think investors should interpret this as evidence that the AI boom will continue indefinitely. The market is now moving from a phase of rapid investment to one where sustainability becomes the key question. Investors will closely watch whether hyperscale cloud companies continue expanding their AI infrastructure as the current pace, and more importantly, whether those investments generate meaningful returns. In my view, the long-term outlook remains positive because AI adoption is still in its early stages across many industries, but the path forward is unlikely to be linear. We should expect periods of slower investment, pricing adjustments, and increased competition. Over these, Samsung Electronics confirmed that the AI investment cycle remains healthy, but future growth will depend on discipline, investment, and continued technological innovation rather than market optimism alone.
I see. You just mentioned slower investment and a more competitive environment, and some analysts see potential delays to AI infrastructure investment as the biggest risk to the current memory boom. What's your take on this, and what are the key risks you see going forward?
I agree that a delay in AI infrastructure investment is one of the most important risks, but I will not say it is the only one risky. The current memory boom is largely driven by hypercycle AI infrastructure spending, particularly strong demand for HBM and advanced DRAM. If cloud companies slow down capital spending because of profitability concerns and power constraints or overcapacity fears, memory price momentum can weaken quickly. That said, AI demand still looks structurally strong. The bigger issue is timing. Memory companies are investing aggressively now, while end-user AI-generated profits is still developing. If supply expands faster than real AI service revenue, the cycle could become more volatile. Going forward, I see three key risks. The first is capital spending buzz by major AI platform companies. Second, technology execution risk, especially Samsung's ability to compete in HBM and advanced packaging. Third is geopolitical risks, including export controls, China competition, and supply chain restrictions. So finally, my view is cautiously positive. The memory upcycle is real, but it is not just risk-free. And Samsung's earnings momentum will depend on whether AI infrastructure investment remains disciplined and profitable and broad-based beyond a few large customers.
I see. And last week, there were reports that Anthropic is in talks with Samsung Electronics to manufacture custom AI chips. If the deal goes through, could this become a symbolic turning point that strengthens the company's foundry competitiveness and expand its position in the global AI ecosystem?
Yeah, if the Anthropic deal goes through, it could become a symbolic turning point for Samsung. The reason is that Samsung's foundry business has needed a strong reference customer in advanced AI chips. A partnership with Anthropic would signal as Samsung is not only a memory supplier, but also a potential strategic manufacturing partner in the AI accelerator ecosystem. However, I would still call it a symbolic turning point first, not yet a fundamental turnaround. The report suggests that the talks are still at an early stage, involving Samsung's 2-nanometer process and advanced packing capabilities. The real test will be whether Samsung can deliver stable yield, performance, power efficiency, and packaging integration at scale. If successful, the deal could improve Samsung's capability and credibility against TSMC and help the company connect memory and foundry and advanced packaging into a broader AI semiconductor platform. But execution risk remains the key variable. In the AI chip market, winning one high-profile customer is important, but proving mass production reliability is what finally strengthens foundry competitiveness.
I see. I guess we'll have to see if this momentum will last. All right, Professor Park, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Canada has selected Germany's ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems as the preferred bidder for its multi-billion-dollar submarine procurement project. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced the decision on Monday before departing for the NATO summit in Ankara. The move ends hopes that the South Korean consortium led by Hanwha Ocean and HD Hyundai Heavy Industries will secure the lucrative contract. The project called for the construction of up to 12 diesel-electric submarines under a program valued at as much as $39.1 billion, including long-term maintenance. However, Carney said that if negotiations with TKMS fail, Canada can still designate Hanwha Ocean as the preferred bidder, describing the South Korean consortium as the reserve supplier. The Rim of the Pacific, the world's largest international maritime warfare drill, is ongoing around the Hawaiian Islands. This edition is all the more significant to the South Korean Navy, which has taken the role of the Combined Force Maritime Component Commander. Our Kim Bo-kyung files his report from Hawaii.
Naval forces from 30 nations convened around the Hawaiian Islands, advancing towards a shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific region. They came together for the Rim of the Pacific, the world's largest multinational maritime military training event. Marking its 30th edition this year, RIMPAC features 30 surface ships, 5 submarines, around 200 aircraft, and 30,000 personnel. On board the USS Essex of the U.S. Amphibious Fleet, one task force commander highlighted the importance of the drill, underlining that the region constitutes nearly 2/3 of the world's economy and is home to over half of the world's population.
And by integrating our forces, we ensure our collective ability to deter aggression, prevent coercion, and protect the global supply chains and lines of communications that help sustain our interconnected economies and our continued prosperity.
This year's RIMPAC exercise is all the more meaningful to the ROK Navy as Korea assumed the role of Combined Force Maritime Component Commander. Dubbed the Fortress on the Sea, the Navy's most advanced Aegis destroyer, the ROK's Cheongdo the Great, is making its RIMPAC debut as the South Korean Navy makes history as the first from Asia to command the exercise's Maritime Task Force. Taking part in simulated air defense warfare training, the crew in the warship's command and control center shot down incoming enemy missiles with SM-2 surface-to-air missiles. ROK's Cheongdo the Great is not the only core asset from Korea that's taking part in the drill. The ROK's Tosan Anchangho is docked at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam in Hawaii. The country's 3,000-ton submarine sailed across the Pacific before joining RIMPAC after completing a combined naval exercise with Canada in early June.
With some of our finest assets here, our multinational partners can see how far the ROK Navy has advanced. Serving as the Combined Force Maritime Component Commander, I can also see how much the Navy's global stature has grown.
With state-of-the-art assets in place, the ROK Navy will continue to demonstrate its capabilities as RIMPAC continues through July 31st. 김보경, Arirang News, Honolulu.
In sports, U.S. President Donald Trump acknowledged calling FIFA President Gianni Infantino about a controversial red card issued to an American player. FIFA says its disciplinary process remains independent, but the incident has sparked calls for an ethics investigation and renewed scrutiny of the organization's political neutrality. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
U.S. President Donald Trump says he called FIFA President Gianni Infantino to discuss the red card given to U.S. striker following Balogun during the World Cup Round of 32 match against Bosnia-Herzegovina.
So, yes, I asked for a review by FIFA. I spoke to a man who's highly respected, and by the way, whose level of respect has gone up tenfold. And he was good before this started, but you know, he really pushed it in this country. I'm the one that got them to do it.
Balogun, who has scored 3 goals in the tournament, was sent off after stepping on the ankle of Bosnia-Herzegovina defender Tariq Muharramovic. The red card carried an automatic 1-game suspension, which would have ruled him out of the round of 16 match against Belgium. But FIFA later suspended the red card, allowing Balogun to play. The decision sparked criticism, with some questioning whether Trump's call had influenced the process. Infantino responded to criticisms on Monday, saying FIFA's judicial bodies are independent and make decisions based on the FIFA disciplinary code and the facts of each case. He confirmed that he had received a call from Trump, but said he explained that the matter was part of an ongoing legal process and would be handled by the appropriate bodies. However, controversy has also drawn criticism from Fair Square, a human rights group focused on sports. Its co-founder Nicholas McGeehan told Reuters that FIFA has become too politically aligned, calling for an investigation into the issue.
We are definitely going to ask for an investigation into the circumstances of this. If there is a quid pro quo here at work, then that is a very clear violation of the Code of Ethics, and a quite serious violation of the Code of Ethics.
McGeehan says Trump's intervention should be investigated as a possible breach of FIFA's rules on political neutrality. 50 members of the European Parliament have also written to FIFA's Ethics Committee, backing a complaint against Infantino over his ties to Trump's political agenda. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Ukraine, Russia launched a large-scale missile and drone attack on Kyiv, killing at least 22 people and exposing weaknesses in its air defenses. The strikes came shortly after U.S. President Donald Trump suggested a diplomatic resolution to the war may be near. Our Chung Il-im has the details.
Russia launched a massive missile and drone attack on Ukraine on Monday, killing at least 22 people and injuring nearly 90 others. Ukrainian authorities said Russia fired 351 drones and 68 missiles early Monday, with Kyiv and nearby areas hit the hardest. Just hours earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump claimed a diplomatic resolution between the warring nations was close.
I think we're getting much closer than people realize, and President Putin wants it to end. I will tell you that very strongly.
Although Ukraine said it intercepted many of the drones and cruise missiles, all 29 ballistic missiles launched by Russia reportedly struck their targets, leaving emergency workers to search the rubble in residential areas for survivors. The strikes also exposed critical gaps in Ukraine's air defenses.
We do not have enough means of defense, especially Patriot missiles. We have demonstrated to all our partners both the need for and, most importantly, the ability to provide greater protection.
Zelensky added that Ukraine could produce Patriot systems itself if Washington granted the necessary manufacturing licenses. Meanwhile, Ukraine carried out its own long-range drone strikes on Russia, with military officials saying the Omsk oil refinery in western Siberia was hit. The facility is Russia's largest oil refinery and accounts for about 12% of the country's refining capacity. Analysts say repeated Ukrainian strikes on Russian energy sites have contributed to fuel shortages and rationing in several regions. Chung Il-im, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun and this is the world now. In Sri Lanka, clashes between prison inmates have left 26 dead and around 100 injured. Clashes began on Sunday between convicted prisoners and those under temporary detention at the facility in Negombo, a coastal town about 35 kilometers north of Colombo. 2 inmates died and 38 were injured in the initial fighting. More violence on Monday morning then left 24 others dead, including 7 prison officials. Sri Lanka's justice minister said some weapons fell into the hands of prisoners during the disturbance. Hospital officials reported some of the injured sustained gunshot wounds. Police riot control squads and special forces were deployed to contain the violence. The justice minister says the situation is now under control. Cuba's power generation system shut down entirely on Monday in what was the 8th nationwide power failure since last October and the 3rd this calendar year. Power company UNE prioritized supply to hospitals and food facilities, but could restore just 1% of Havana's normal requirements by the afternoon. Years of neglect toward aging infrastructure combined with fuel restrictions have forced Cubans to endure prolonged blackouts spanning days. The Trump administration discontinued Venezuelan fuel deliveries to the island months ago and convinced Mexico to suspend its own shipments. 2/3 of residents had already lost electricity before Monday's complete collapse occurred. Residents described conditions as unbearable amid summer heat and surging mosquito populations. Microsoft announced on Monday that it will cut 4,800 workers from its payroll, roughly 2.1% of total staff, as the company reorganizes its gaming operations. The Xbox sector will absorb 3,200 of those departures, with layoffs beginning immediately for 1,600 employees on Monday. The company rejected suggestions that artificial intelligence would fill these roles. Despite years of investment in the gaming sector, Microsoft has failed to close the gap with competitors Sony and Nintendo. It is shifting course towards spreading its game portfolio across multiple distribution channels rather than depending solely on exclusive console titles to drive hardware demand. A London judge will deliver a decision on Tuesday on whether the Daily Mail publisher engaged in unlawful information gathering against Prince Harry and several other British celebrities. The case centers on claims that dozens of stories that were published from the 1990s to 2011 were based on information obtained unlawfully via mobile phone message interception, telephone line monitoring, and fraudulent extraction of medical files. The Daily Mail leadership acknowledged minor regulatory violations, but insisted they terminated investigator relationships from 2007 forward.
The morning commute was a wet start to the day as monsoon rain continued across parts of the country. A strong band of rain clouds will move towards the northeast, bringing heavy rain to the northern parts of Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces, while the rest of the country will get 5 to 60 millimeters of monsoon showers. And once the rain moves out, attention will turn to heat and afternoon thunderstorms. Heat advisories remain in place for the southern parts of Gyeonggi-do province and Gyeongsang-do provinces. Then there is a chance of heavy passing showers with 5 to 60 millimeters in the forecast, along with thunderstorms. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 30 degrees Celsius. Daegu tops out at 34 degrees, and it's going to be quite muggy in Daegu with a heat advisory in place and rain ahead. Looking ahead, the monsoon front will strengthen again tomorrow and Thursday. Forecast indicates more than 150 millimeters of rain across central Korea and over 120 millimeters in parts of the southern regions.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.